Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dargon Gaming Squad. I am GM Chris, and looks like I'm flying solo on this week's RPG A Day Questions. So we are up to question number 13, and this week's theme is describe. And so the first question is, describe how your play has evolved. So this is interesting. I think it's evolved in the scope of actually role-playing more. So when I first started to play, I play with a second edition group, which I've talked about quite a few times, and we're still playing that second edition campaign. One of these days we'll get around to wrapping it up. I hear we're very close, but as these things go, it just seems to take longer than I think it's going to every time. So I'm making no predictions about when that's going to happen. But in that game, we tend to tell the GM what we want to do, and he does all the storytelling. Much like Emily described in our last video for one of the questions. And so getting into games where I was welcome to actually contribute in a real way was really new to me. And I'm not sure, I think our GM would totally allow us to do that in his game. I think it's just partially the tone of our group and then partially kind of an old school tone. But I've gotten a lot of little hints that maybe from listening to the stories of our GM and my friend, his wife, who have played, for a really long time, like since the original, at least he's played since the original Red Box or whatever. So anyway, I get hints, from that I pick up from their conversations about how they played, and I get the impression that they did a lot more in-character role-playing than what we're doing. So I have actually evolved into trying out voices. The Star Wars character that I've been talking about, Sasha, was my first attempt at that, and I do sort of the very horrible sort of Southern accent. It's pretty bad and very inconsistent, but it's fun. And since then, I've done a couple other accents. Well, Italian I've done. So, that's an evolution for me. In addition to that, I think I touched on this in one of the other videos too, is that I have evolved in the kind of characters I like to play and in the style of play that I like. When I first started playing 5th edition, again, I was playing that 2nd edition game, and I just wanted to play more often. And I discovered, through a variety of means, that there is a thriving online community, that there are opportunities to play online with other people. And it gave me a chance to try out 5th edition. It gave me a chance to try out lots of other games. As you know, I've been exploring many systems. And I think primarily it also gave me a chance to meet more GMs, be exposed to more styles of play, and also more players, and to pick things up from them. And so there's been quite an evolution in, enjoying one-shots more for the sake of having those opportunities that I just mentioned. And, now evolving to where I'd prefer to be in at least a multi-session game. It doesn't have to be a full-on epic campaign, but to play something that encompasses, several sessions is really great. So that is my question for week, or my answer for week, for day number 13, excuse me. So the second one is, describe a failure that became amazing. Now that's a tough one. So I've experienced a lot more things with this game, with gaming in general as I've been playing, but I'm not sure that I have really anything to share to share there. I guess, I could say going to that Star Wars game again, Edge of the Empire, that I play over on the channel Chalice and Chains. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. It's been a lot of fun. It's the Sunday Sandbox. We had a situation that just turned out to be just a huge cluster. We took a prisoner to turn in for a bounty, and that whole situation escalated into player versus player. And it's just been nuts. So, we had this situation where one of the crew members is a droid who is very bounty centric, and that's all he thinks about is getting bounties and making, earning credits. And this droid was, torturing this prisoner, and we made the mistake. The failure is that we made the mistake of leaving that character alone with the droid while we went and took care of some business. And we came back to absolute chaos. They had just, beat the daylights out of each other. And the bounty is, he was practically dead and he needed medical attention, and it just escalated from there. So I don't want to give too many details. It certainly didn't turn out amazing in a positive way, but it was pretty amazing. The player versus player was something I didn't expect to see. I know it's something that tends to be frowned upon. It totally fit in this situation, and made for wow, just a crazy session. And from there, it escalated in some other, more minor situations. But yeah, so that's what I would say for 14. Question number 13. Describe a tricky RPG experience that you enjoyed. These questions for this week are so much harder. Let me see what the alternate questions are, because there are alternate questions. And by the way, guys, might be a good opportunity to share a little bit about this year's setup for RPG-A-Day. I happened to watch Autocratic's video the other day on it, and the link to Autocratic's blog will be posted below so that you can access these questions yourself if you want to. Share them on social media, do videos of your own, share them on a blog, whatever you prefer. But what I learned is, if you look at the layout this year for the weeks, you have the theme, and then you have these questions that are in, kind of a light lavender purple. And then there's 2 blocks of 2 days that are a different shade of purple. Well, what it turned out is that those alternate colors are the weekends. So they, rather than sticking with the theme, they just have something random that you can share. I'm sure there was some thought behind how they picked it. So to say it's a random may not be fair. But anyway, so check that out. And again, the link will be below. Share the most innovative game of the last 12 months. All right, I'm going to share that. That's a really good one. So, innovative game of the last 12 months. I would give that to actually Chad Nick, who ran it. It's not something I ran. Chad Nick, and his channel is Chad Nick, and I'll try to remember to post that below as well, along with Chalice and Chain's channel. He did a fiasco game that he did something very unique with. So the game is called All in the Family. We had a great group of people that I got to play with in that game. Chad decided to run it quite different in a couple ways. So the first way is, typically it's a GM-less game. And typically the GM is another one of the players at the table, and they establish relationships and play right along with everybody else. They're just there to kind of help people understand the rules and kind of guide the acts and the tilt and whatnot, and to just kind of remind people how it's done. But what Chad decided to do is actually essentially GM it to make sure that it kind of stayed in the flavor that he was going for, and he played a major NPC, what would be an NPC in a typical game. And I know that sounds really wildly different, but he didn't dictate the story to us or anything. And if you head over there and watch, you'll see exactly what I mean. But he did kind of help keep it within the parameters of what we were looking for. So that was really unique. In addition to that, he made it a multi-act. Fiasco, if you don't know, is normally just in a couple acts. You have Act 1, you have the tilt, you have Act 2, and then you have the wrap up at the end, which has the aftermath, is what they call it, the aftermath. But he set it up so that we did 2 sessions. So far we've had 4 acts, and the intention was to do it in 6. We'll see if the last set, we haven't been able to find dates that everybody could play at the same time, and some decisions need to be made about where we're going with the story. So we're just kind of in limbo on it at this point. But I would say that's the most innovative game, because it was just a really unique twist on how Fiasco's done. It made it a little more, it kind of took the best of both worlds, RPG versus the very improv nature of Fiasco. And it was a really, really fun game. So I'd say go check that out. We are on question number 16. Describe your plans for your next game. Yay, I get to describe my next game. That's something I can do. So I have been working with my friends from the Sunday Sandbox group on a Eberron game. So Sam is a big fan of the setting, as is Corey. And they've both played in the setting before, and some of you may know that recently Wizards of the Coast put out actually a play test of Eberron for 5th edition. It's not fully complete, it's not all fleshed out, but people are very excited because this was apparently a very popular setting, and I can see why. It's got a lot of really cool elements. In conjunction with that, there is someone who put together an Eberron Genesys hack, or they converted it for Genesys. And since that is the system we really love, the narrative dice system, it's essentially the same system that you play in Star Wars. It's got some differences for the generic use, which, the idea being that you can apply it to, any setting that you want, or create your own setting. And that's really cool. So anyway, we got our hands on that. Sam got his hands on it. And we are going to be running some games in Eberron. And I am going to be the first one to GM it. And I'm nervous about it, but I'm happy about it too, because, it's a great way to show your GM's appreciation for them in taking over and running once in a while so that they can play. And I think it's really important that everybody put themselves in a different role once in a while in this game. I think it's great for GMs to get in the player seat and be reminded of, what it's like to be in that seat, and just also just to get to play just for the fun of it and not have all that responsibility that comes with running. And Sam's into, of course, also the production side of all the games that are run on his channel. So he has a lot on his shoulders, and he deserves to get to play once in a while and just have a good time. So I'm looking forward to that for that reason. But in addition to that, I'm really excited about Genesys. It's just a really neat system. And Eberron just happens to be right on the borderline of being, it's almost an urban fantasy game. It's not. Eberron's an entire world, and it's got lots of places in it, but my imagination has been absolutely captivated by the city of Sharn, the city of towers. And Sharn is this absolutely massive city. It's like, you know, it's a metropolis. It's like New York City in medieval times. So it's really, really cool. It's very large. Again, it's a city of towers. It's got these, you know, massive, you know, it's just built up like these huge, you know, skyscraper type city. And it's got, you know, the classes are, you know, it's got very distinct classes, and they are arranged according to the levels of the city. So you've got the very poor at the bottom, and you've got the very, very rich at the top, and, you know, everybody else is in between. And there's, you know, there's lightning rail, which is really neat. There's a lot of magic. Everything's, you know, kind of, they have technology, but it's all magic powered. So it's super, super interesting. And I have been kind of really wanting to play in an urban setting. And I hope I'll get, you know, I know I will get a chance to play. I know Sam will run some things. It's possible some of the other members of the group will run some things in Eberron as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't yet know what the story is going to be. I was originally going to run a session this past Sunday. And that would have been the 12th. Not sure when this is going to actually air. So anyway, on the 12th I was going to run, but it kind of became clear that we needed a session 0. There were a lot of folks who hadn't had a chance to look at the materials and or didn't have any of their own, and didn't know weren't familiar with Eberron. I'm not either. This is really my introduction to Eberron. So, you know, it just became clear that a session 0 was needed. In addition to that, it became really clear that we were going to be doing more than one session, that we're going to probably want some sort of campaign. So I was originally just going to run something from a supplement, the Encounters in Sharn, and it was just a really quick and simple encounter that was probably going to be similar to one of my half shots in length and scope. And, you know, I certainly could have still done that, but there were some life things for the group and whatnot. So anyway, we're going to try to do a campaign instead. So at this point, you know, having decided this on Sunday, I haven't yet figured out what that campaign is going to be, but I'm really excited because I already know what the players, what characters they're going to play, what the careers are that they've chosen. I already have a couple, you know what some of their connections are and stuff. So I'm hoping that will help me as I start to read through more of the materials that I've picked up. I'm so excited. I've bought so many books lately for this, but I'm hoping that'll help me find some inspiration and figure out something to do. So as I was starting to say, I guess I should go back to that because I didn't finish, is that Sharn to me is almost like an urban fantasy setting. It's of course not modern day, but it does have some technology, and then you've got this urban setting, and you've got all these fantasy races and stuff. So I'm hoping it'll satisfy my craving for that for at least a little bit longer so that I can work on an urban fantasy modern day setting. But in the meantime, I can get some more games under my belt and start to hopefully understand a little more how Genesys works so that I can make, I hope, better decisions and things in the design of the setting that I want to do. So, and my setting's more going to be, you know, mechanics and races and that sort of thing, and not so much a place, because I want to, you know, play in the modern day world in my own city, or, you know, or a city in my vicinity, or a city somewhere else in the US. So anyway, so that's plans for the next game is Genesys in Eberron in the city of Sharn. So the next question, number 17, is describe the best compliment you've had while gaming. The best compliment that I've had is simply the group of friends that I have made that want to game with me and are willing to give me a seat in their game anytime that I wish to play with them. And I mean, that's the greatest compliment you could ever get. I know that I'm not the absolute best role player out there, and I know I have a lot of ways I can grow. But to know that people want me in their games, are happy to have me in their games, people who say, "Oh, I love playing with you," that's the best compliment you can get. Knowing that there's always going to be a seat at the table in somebody's game is pretty fabulous. And I have managed to somehow make a very large group of friends. You know, I have the squad, I have my home group, I have the Sunday Sandbox crew, I have several other smaller groups that, you know, of people that I know I can always play with, that I know they're just always, we're all there for each other. And that's, it's just the best compliment you can get, to know that you have a game to play. So moving on to the weekend question. So we have 18, is what art inspires your game? I think for me, the art is more the books that I read, which I think it's fair to call that still art. You know, I think you've all heard me, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you've all heard me talk about the many book series that I read that I love. You know, I love the Dresden Files. I love The Hollows by Kim Harrison. I've read a lot of Anita Blake. I absolutely love Mercy Thompson by Patricia Briggs, and Jane Yellowrock by Faith Hunter. There's just so many great books out there. Harry Potter, you know, there's just all these books, all this great written material. I think more than anything is what inspires me. The storylines in them, the way the kind of the mythos that the authors come up with surrounding, you know, vampires and werewolves and shapeshifters and things of this nature. I think I've mentioned many times that Shay is very heavily influenced by Jane Yellowrock and Mercy Thompson. I've looked, you know, into, you know, heavily at those. In my urban fantasy setting that I've been talking about, I'm intending to lean very heavily toward those and the Dresden Files. I like that Dresden world. Actually, Mercy Thompson has a similar element of, you know, fairies and things being influencers in our modern day world, and fairy being, you know, very having, you know, there being access to fairy as a place, or as we refer to in D&D, I guess, as planes. They live on another plane of existence, and it's very close and very thin in some areas, and people can cross into it. And so I love that. I love having, you know, the summer court and the winter court, you know, influencing our world, and that being something that Harry Dresden type character has to deal with. So for me, definitely books, movies too, more so than art. However, when it comes to literal art, you know, drawings and paintings and things, I think character art very, very much influences my characters. You know, sometimes I'll go looking for an image I actually have a Pinterest board that is just full of character inspiration. And so sometimes when I'm not sure what I want to play, I'll go through and I'll look for a character that fits what the GM has said about, you know, the world. So maybe like when we played Tears in the Rain, which was a Blade Runner Genesys game over on Chalice and Chains, you know, that's more a Blade Runner, you know, so you're kind of, you know, noir cyberpunk kind of setting. I went looking for characters, and I actually based my character more on, I kind of knew a little bit about the character I was going to play, but I went looking for inspiration to help me form who this person was. Oftentimes I will just go to that page and I'll look and I'll find an image that inspires me. Another good example is the game I played with Paul Quattrocchiotti, The Outside. I believe, boy, I can't think of his channel name right now, but the games are available on YouTube. There were, I believe, 6 sessions. I only got to play in about half of them just because of scheduling issues. But that character, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to play, and I found this image that inspired me. So I went looking through my Pinterest board and said, oh, here's an image that I picked that I haven't used yet. I'm going to use that. And then I based the flavor of her spells as I was playing and kind of who she is from that picture, from that artwork image. So definitely my characters are heavily inspired by art or influenced. But sometimes it goes the other way around too. Sometimes I have to really search to find an image that fits, what's up here. And so, it can go either way. But when it comes to literal art, character art is definitely a big influencer. So last but not least, describe what music enhances your game. That's a really good question because I don't really use music in the games that I've run. I did do a couple sessions with the squad recently where I did have some sound effects and stuff going on, but I haven't used that a whole lot. Honestly, when I'm playing online, I've noticed that probably because of resources of just my limited internet, I often end up not being able to hear any music that's being played. So I'm going to take another piece of these alternate questions and see if there's anything here. Okay, here's a good one. An alternate prompt is, what makes you want to GM? Great. Okay, that's a good one. So I think most of you know that GMing is not my first thing. It's not what I gravitate to. I am definitely much more interested in playing. And for me, what drives me to GM is actually a couple things. I think it's fair to say, sorry, cat's sitting on my mouse and keyboard, of course, because she has to be in it on everything. But I think the biggest thing that drives me to GM is a desire to play systems, to explore other systems, to explore things that are not D&D. There's so many genres out there, and there are so many other systems. And as you know, I've been exploring them. Deadlands, Star Wars, Genesys, Fiasco, Cypher System, Dresden Files. I would like to play some Fate that is, straight up Fate. Savage Worlds are both kind of on my list. There's a game that I'm really excited about called Damn the Man, Save the Music that I hope to bring to the channel soon. And so, I don't see a lot of people running a lot of these other systems. I see the groups that I'm really involved in are very, very D&D centric, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I want to play other games too, and I want to explore, and I want to find, I think the biggest thing that has driven me to do that is wanting to find things that work to bring to life the books that I read, that I was just talking about, that inspire me. So that's what really drives me to GM the most is, hey, I don't see anybody else running it. I guess I'm going to have to run it myself, which is a little bit unsatisfying for me because I want to play the games. I don't want to run the games. And some GMs I know consider that playing, but for me, it's not. It's just not the same, and it's certainly not my first preference, and it's probably not a lot of people's first preference. But you know, that's the first thing. The second thing is what I was talking about earlier, which is giving the GMs a break. Somebody's got to do it. I've been flat out told in my second edition game that I need to do it. And I think part of the reason is because I have been talking about these other systems. I am also the only one in that group who has played 5th edition. We're getting ready to update to that edition, and there's been things that the GM has been introducing along the way. But even then, there's going to be some, you know, there's going to be some home rules to it that are probably a little more extensive than just, you know, a lot of people have house rules, but I think these are a little bit more extensive, and it won't be quite as wide open as what most of us are used to with our 5th edition. So I'm curious to see how that goes and how it compares to 5th edition as I know it. But I also think that because I'm the only one who's played it, that it might be good to run a few 5th edition sessions for that group as well, so that they can experience 5th edition just straight up, so that they also can have like informed opinions about how they feel about it, and or be able to say, you know, I don't really like this mechanic, or gosh, I'm really glad you changed that one. And one that I've already had experience with has been really good. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, my GM has said, hey, you're going to run stuff. Nobody else has said they even want to, and nobody else has been told to, which I think is a little unfair, but that's okay. I'm happy to do it. I'm a little intimidated by it because he has so much experience, but at the same time, I think it'll be a great opportunity to introduce some different styles to the group, and we'll just see how it goes. So, you know, that's a big one. Again, you know, Nate has asked me to run. I actually ran for our group before Nate did. I kind of got the ball rolling because I had played some online games, and I finally kind of understood how we could make it work with him being in Vegas and me being in Washington State. So, you know, I got the ball rolling on that, and then kind of said, you know, Nate, you're really the one who should be GMing because you're the better storyteller. And he's taken off and run with it since then, but he hasn't had a lot of breaks. So I do think his group there, the physical group that's there, has, you know, they have some other folks they also play with, their family, and I think they've given him some breaks, but he needs some on our end once in a while too. And so that's, you know, that's it. That's in a nutshell for me, to give the GM a break, as well as to, you know, make sure that I get to play some of the other systems I want to play. So that is it for questions 13 through 19. I'm not sure if these are going to be all in one video. I suspect they will, because this actually, I think I'm only running it about 40 minutes right now, and there's probably even a few edits that I will be able to make. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry we couldn't get the team together for this one. I hope we can reconvene the team for next week's questions. We only have a couple. This is a long month, so we have two more weeks to go. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear your answers to these questions. So if you are doing videos or a blog post or something that you can share, feel free to comment below with your links. I know that's not normally done, but I think it's a great way for us to get to know you. So do feel free to do that below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, give it the thumbs up. And if you have been enjoying our videos, we hope you'll subscribe so that you can catch all of them. And until next time, get out and get gaming.